King Von has been gone for nearly 6 years, but somehow the money never stopped moving. Millions of people are still listening to his music every month. Albums have been released after his passing. His name remains one of the most recognizable from Chicago's drill scene. And behind all of it sits an estate built around music, royalties, intellectual property, and a legacy that continues generating attention long after Von himself was gone. But there's one claim that keeps appearing online that makes the story sound even crazier. King Von supposedly left his mother a fortune worth around $20 million. Some people have gone even further, claiming his mother inherited the entire amount and is now living an unbelievable lifestyle because of it. There's just one problem. When you actually dig into the public records, the story becomes much more complicated, because King Von didn't leave behind a simple pile of cash with his mother's name written on it. He died without a will. His estate had to go through administration. A company was eventually created to hold valuable intellectual property and royalty assets. And years later, that same estate would find itself dragged into a massive legal fight. So how much did King Von really leave behind? Who controls the money today? And is that famous $20 million figure even real? Because once you understand what happened after Von's death, his financial legacy looks very different from what the internet makes it seem. Long before anyone was talking about estates and royalty companies, Davon Bennett was a kid growing up on Chicago's South Side. The environment surrounding him would eventually become inseparable from his music. Von didn't build his reputation by pretending to understand street life from a distance. His entire appeal came from how convincingly he could turn the world around him into stories. And one person had been there long before the fame arrived: his mother, Natasha. Von's relationship with his family became an important part of his public image because when money finally started coming in, he seemed determined to make sure the people closest to him felt it too. One of the moments fans still remember involved Von surprising his mother with a house. Think about how quickly that transformation happened. This wasn't someone who had spent 20 years accumulating entertainment wealth. Von's mainstream career was incredibly short. He went from gaining serious attention in Chicago to becoming one of rap's fastest rising storytellers in only a few years. His connection with Lil Durk and Only the Family helped introduce him to a much larger audience. But once listeners discovered Von, it was his storytelling that separated him. Crazy Story became his breakout. Then came projects like Grandson, Volume 1, and LeVon James. By 2020, Von wasn't simply another rapper bubbling out of Chicago anymore. He was becoming a national artist. And then came Welcome to O'Block. That album was supposed to mark the beginning of the biggest stage of his career. Instead, it became one of the final projects released during his lifetime. On November 6, 2020, King Von was fatally shot following an altercation outside an Atlanta nightclub. He was just 26 years old, and Welcome to O'Block had been released only days earlier. That's important because when Von died, he wasn't at the end of a long career where most of his earning potential had already been realized. He was arguably standing at the beginning of it. The audience was growing, the streams were increasing, his catalog was expanding, his brand was becoming more valuable. And suddenly, all of that future earning potential belonged to an estate. This is where the story gets interesting. Celebrity wealth videos love one number: net worth. It's simple, it's clickable, and it's frequently misleading. Someone dies and websites estimate they were worth $5 million or worth $20 million, and suddenly people assume there must have been a bank account containing exactly that amount. But music estates don't work like that. There is cash, there can be property, there are royalty payments, there are publishing interests, there are recording rights, there is intellectual property, there is merchandise, and most importantly, there is the future value of a catalog that may continue producing revenue for decades. Those aren't the same thing. And in Von's case, the legal records reveal another major complication. He apparently died without a will. That meant there wasn't a document simply saying, "Everything goes here." His estate had to be formally administered. In March 2021, only months after Von's death, his mother petitioned to become administrator of his estate. But becoming administrator doesn't automatically mean somebody personally inherited every dollar. An administrator manages the estate and its responsibilities. That's a huge difference. And then something happened that almost never gets mentioned in the viral videos about Vaughn's supposed $20 million fortune. A company was created in April 2021. Forever and a Day LLC was formed on behalf of the estate. And according to court records, its purpose involved holding King Vaughn's intellectual property and royalty assets. That detail changes the entire picture, because suddenly we're not talking about a mother receiving one enormous check and spending it. We're talking about an estate being structured around assets designed to continue producing revenue. And Vaughn's music absolutely continued producing attention. After his passing, something happened that only happens with certain artists. The audience didn't disappear, it grew. His music surged as listeners returned to his catalog, and millions of new listeners discovered him for the first time. But the real test wasn't what happened immediately after his death. Almost every famous artist experiences an enormous spike in attention after passing. The real question was, what would happen years later? Would people still care? In Vaughn's case, the answer was yes. In 2022, his posthumous album What It Means to Be King debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200. Number 2, for an artist who had already been gone for well over a year. The project moved around 59,000 equivalent album units in its opening week, with streaming making up the overwhelming majority. Those songs generated tens of millions of on-demand streams during that opening period alone. Then another posthumous album, Grandson, arrived in 2023 and also reached the Billboard 200. And years later, Vaughn still attracts millions of monthly listeners on Spotify. That's where the economics become fascinating. A song isn't like selling a car. Sell a car once and the transaction is finished. A recording can theoretically be monetized again and again. Someone plays it today. Someone discovers it next month. A teenager who was barely old enough to know who King Vaughn was in 2020 discovers Crazy Story years later. A video sends an old track viral. A new posthumous project causes fans to revisit the older albums. Each event breathes new commercial life into the same underlying catalog. And that's why ownership matters so much. There have been public claims surrounding Vaughn's ownership of his music, including claims from people connected to his career that he controlled his masters. But exactly how every recording, publishing interest, royalty split, label agreement, distribution arrangement, and contractual obligation works isn't something outsiders should pretend to know. That's another place where the viral version of this story goes too far. You sometimes hear that every King Vaughn stream goes directly to his mother. That's not how the music business works. Streaming revenue can pass through multiple rights holders and agreements before the final money reaches whoever is entitled to it. What we can say is much more interesting. Court documents describe an actual company associated with Vaughn's estate that holds intellectual property and royalty assets. Those are real assets. And as long as people continue consuming the music, those assets can continue having economic value. Which brings us back to that $20 million number. Where did it actually come from? Search King Vaughn's fortune online and you'll find estimates all over the place. Some discuss what he was worth when he died. Others estimate what his catalog could eventually be worth. Some mix posthumous earnings with estate value. And others simply repeat numbers from another website until an estimate starts sounding like a documented fact. But there is a massive difference between saying King Vaughn's music and associated rights could potentially be worth millions and saying his mother personally inherited $20 million. Those are completely different claims. The public probate information doesn't establish the simple story circulating online that Natasha received a $20 million personal inheritance. And there's another reason we need to be careful with the number. An estate doesn't only have assets, it can have liabilities. And years after Vaughn's passing, his estate became connected to a legal battle carrying potentially serious financial consequences. In 2024, the mother of Chicago rapper FBG Duck filed a major wrongful death lawsuit naming numerous defendants. Among them were King Vaughn's estate, Lil Durk, Only the Family, and other parties. The lawsuit made serious allegations surrounding the events connected to Duck's death, including allegations involving Vaughn. Those claims are allegations made in civil litigation, not something that should automatically be treated as proven fact. But financially, the lawsuit matters for another reason. It shows exactly why managing an estate can become complicated. When an artist becomes more commercially valuable after death, the estate isn't simply sitting around collecting Spotify money. There can be lawyers, claims, contracts, taxes, business entities, rights negotiations, potential disputes between interested parties, and decisions about when and whether to release unreleased material. Every decision can either preserve the value of the catalog or slowly destroy it. We've seen artist estates mishandle this before. Release too much material and fans stop caring. License the artist's image everywhere, and the brand starts feeling cheap. Fight internally, and legal fees can eat into assets. Sell valuable rights too early, and the family may receive a big payday while sacrificing decades of future income. But manage it carefully, and something completely different can happen. A recording catalog can behave almost like a financial asset. And that's where Vaughn may have left his family something potentially more valuable than the number people keep putting in thumbnails. A machine. Not literally, of course, but economically, that's what a valuable music catalog can become. Something that keeps producing long after the person who created it is gone. And Vaughn created that machine astonishingly young. He was 26. That's what makes the entire story so strange. Most people at 26 are only beginning to figure out what they want their careers to become. Vaughn had already created songs that would eventually accumulate hundreds of millions of plays. He had built a recognizable brand. He had helped his mother financially. He had developed an audience that would remain intensely loyal after his passing. And then everything stopped. Except the business. The music kept playing. The royalties kept being generated. The posthumous releases kept arriving. The audience kept discovering him, and his mother suddenly found herself connected not simply to her son's memory, but to the responsibility of protecting what he had built. That makes the popular image of her life today somewhat misleading. People want to imagine mansions, luxury cars, designer shopping trips, and an unlimited inheritance. Maybe because that's more exciting, but the truly extraordinary transformation is much quieter. Vaughn came from an environment where financial security could feel almost impossible. Then, within an incredibly short career, he created intellectual property valuable enough that legal structures were put in place to manage it after he was gone. His family didn't simply receive whatever money remained in his checking account. They became connected to an entertainment estate, and an estate containing valuable intellectual property can potentially outlive everyone currently managing it. Songs don't have retirement ages. Crazy Story doesn't stop existing when its creator does. Welcome to a Block doesn't disappear because another generation of rappers arrives. As long as people continue listening, licensing, sampling, purchasing, watching, and rediscovering the work, there is potential economic activity surrounding it. That doesn't mean the estate is guaranteed to grow forever. Music tastes change. Streaming economics change. Legal disputes can become expensive. Catalogs can lose relevance. And posthumous releases eventually run out. But nearly 6 years after Vaughn's death, people are still talking about him. Still debating him. Still streaming him. Still discovering his story. And that may be the strongest evidence of what he actually built. Not a mythical suitcase containing $20 million. Something far harder to create. Relevance that survived him. So did King Von's mother inherit $20 million? There isn't enough reliable public evidence to confidently say that she personally received a $20 million inheritance. Could Von's catalog, royalties, intellectual property, and associated assets be worth millions? Absolutely. Could their value change dramatically depending on future streams, ownership percentages, contracts, licensing opportunities, and legal liabilities? Absolutely, and that's why the real story is better than the viral headline. And because King Von didn't need to leave exactly $20 million sitting in a bank account to permanently alter his family's financial trajectory. He left music, he left intellectual property, he left an audience, he left a brand people were still emotionally invested in years after he was gone. And somewhere inside all of that sits perhaps the most painful part of the story. Von managed to accomplish one of the things he apparently wanted most. He changed his mother's circumstances. but he never got to live long enough to enjoy that transformation with her. The house, the success, the millions of listeners, the albums charting after his death. Those things represent victory and loss at exactly the same time. And maybe that's why reducing the story to King Von's mom inherited $20 million misses the point completely. The exact number could be lowered. It could eventually be higher. The catalog could become more valuable decades from now than anyone expects today. But the remarkable part is that a young man who didn't make it past 26 created something capable of continuing without him. And nearly 6 years later, millions of people can still press play. And every time they do, the business King Von left behind keeps moving. So maybe the real question isn't whether his mother inherited $20 million. Maybe it's this. If you had the choice, would you rather inherit $20 million once or inherit an asset capable of paying your family for decades?